Alrighty, we are live.
Ooh.
Hello, everybody. We are live. I am here with an incredible woman named Coryn Smith. We were just enjoying a little bit of Scottish accents about a couple of minutes ago while we were waiting for the live to finish preparing.
Right.
Well, here we are. I am here, as I said, with Coryn Smith from Nourish Me, and she is a massage therapist and a naturopath. Are you not?
I am.
You
Hello.
are, and I lifted a couple of sentences from your Facebook page, and I'm just going to share those with the listeners. So you work with clients that have become disconnected, and you help them reconnect.
Yes.
Sounds amazing. and also people that see value in keeping themselves in balance, and I think that is so valid for what we're talking about today. Boosting, how to boost your immune system like a boss. That was the theme for today's interview. And the way that I'd love to start this, Coryn, is to ask you, we all have a story. We all have a story about how we come into this kind of work, supporting other people, being in service, being in health and well-being. And I find that they're usually really interesting stories.
Yeah.
So what brought you to this place? What brought you to this place supporting people out there in the world as a massage therapist and a naturopath? Would love to hear.
Okay. Well, first of all, hello, Jacqueline, lovely lady. Thank you for having me on. And so I'm a herbalist as well, and I've got a real affinity with herbs. But I was actually in outdoor education before I was a naturopath, and I got really unwell. So I got chronic fatigue. So I was 21, 22, and all of a sudden I went from being a really fit, healthy, vibrant being into literally not being able to get out of bed in the morning. And I went to my mum traced me along to doctors and specialists and scans and all sorts. And what they came up with is, well, you may have had a virus, we don't really know, but take some antidepressants. And so a friend of my mum's actually said, look, I know this woman, she's an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I think you should go and see her. So I went to see her. She felt my pulse, she read my pulse, and she did a consultation. And she was the first person that kind of went, wow, so you're really unwell. And in that moment, I was like, damn, someone just heard me. And from that, when I was 21, 22, and I learned to meditate, and I started the relationship back into myself. Yeah. And so I started on the journey of, having a relationship with myself. And then I got really curious and really interested in motivating other people to do that. So that's what drives me, really. That's why I do what I do. I love what I do. I love giving tools to people so that they can get in the driver's seat and have a bit of an understanding of what's going on for them, mind-body connection. Because quite often, especially at the moment, there's so much information out there, and you can get really overwhelmed, and so for me, one of my passions is, I've experienced being really unwell, and I then intellectualized what I could do, and then I had an embodied experience of that, and that's what makes me go boom. Boom, boom. Yeah. And that's how I am with my clients. And to have the training as a herbalist and a naturopath and have the research is really nice, as opposed to just kind of going, oh, this is, not having that that education was really important to me. So that's why I decided to do my training, and that was 20 years ago.
I love what you're saying, because it's, that we become what we need, we become what we needed, and I love that. And I love what you're saying about, the reconnection, the sort of back into yourself and balance, which I opened this interview with. And also what I loved what you just said a moment ago was that there's so much information out there, and that's kind of what I wanted to lead into next, because we've been in these really different set of circumstances. We've been in lockdown, And there's a lot of, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of information out there about lockdown, about isolation, about quarantine, about social distancing, hygiene, sanitization, being in the bubble, and vaccination, of course, and so much more. And it seems to me that there's so little information in the mainstream media, especially around boosting our natural immune system, about what has been given to us here. So why is that? Why is there so little information about this out there at the moment?
I think that there is the information there if you really know where to look, right? But if you don't know where to look, it's not there. And so I think what I'm seeing at the moment is the media is playing on people's fear. They're playing on, that's what the media does. That's how they sell their news, right? So hate to say it, but they're really playing on that fear. And look, there's some really, really scary stuff going on at the moment, right? And we're well to kind of look at this and kind of say, well, how do I best look after myself and my family and the people around me? So I don't know. I don't want to get into conspiracies or anything like that, but I do think that the information is there, but you've got to dig a little bit deeper. And there's also lots of do-gooders that are giving the wrong type of information out as well, so people that potentially haven't been trained and have been kind of saying, well, if you do this and you do that, you're not going to get COVID. Well, and some of this information is really misleading. So that is the way of the world with anyone can be a bloody expert, right? And shit, I've been trained, I've been an naturopath for 20 years and I don't even call myself an expert. So I know a little bit about the body, right? And a little bit about how it works. But I think the problem with when something happens like this, we go into our fight and flight and freeze, and we can talk about that a little bit later on because it's so important with the immunity, right? With your immune system, fight, flight, and freeze. And I think what happens is then it becomes a bit clouded about what information we seek and what we think is true or not, so I think it's really important to really start having a relationship with your body, and do some reading on how your body works, and start looking into that mind-body connection about what feels good, for you, and what doesn't, what do you notice, once you start noticing what's going on in the body, then that can be really helpful to go, okay, so when I do this, this is what happens. And that's a really good beginning place for self-empowerment with self-organization of the body. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is just bringing the kind of reference point or the place to start back to here rather than out there.
Yeah, and the sources that you look at, make sure they're reputable. Make sure they're from both sides of the story. Yes, and don't just get all your information from one source. And start coming back into here. We have the ability to heal and self-organize tremendously, and we've really forgotten how to do that. We've been told we can't. Through the main
heal and self-organize. Is that what you said? Heal and
the self-organize. When I talk about that, it's like when we become in a state of imbalance and disbalance and dis-ease, the body needs to go through a stage of reorganization. It's called homeostasis in the body, right? So the body's constantly trying to keep ourselves in homeostasis. So another word for that is reorganizing the body, and bringing it back into balance. And that's been taken away from us. Yes. And so therefore we've handed over that to someone else, and that's very disempowering when it comes to our own health, our own immunity, our own well-being, yes, our own management of where we want to go in life and how it wants to look like. And so this is a kind of big picture here of a lot of people feel disempowered and disconnected, with the simple fact that they can get into the driver's seat and go, all right, body, mind, let's get this party going on, let's get connected, let's get sorted out, right? Let's start having a conversation with each other. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, what I'm hearing from you is that also, along with the empowerment, it's also a much more proactive and a preemptive approach, rather than these kind of reactive approaches, which are, sorting out the symptoms.
Yeah, that's right. So, we will all present symptoms. Yeah. So you got your symptoms up here, and you've got everybody. Yes, you've got every individual that represents their own unique genetics, their own different perception and how they see the world. And we know now that our perception influences our biology. We know this now through science and through epigenetics. And so we know that there's this whole connection between all these symptoms and going upstream to the mind-body connection, the perception, the epigenetics, the way we think and we feel. And this is not just my opinion here. This is, Bruce Lipton talks about this all the time. This is us getting back into the driver's seat, and this is us having a relationship with our body. And the freaking amazing thing is in doing that, we influence our biology. What does that mean? We can express genes differently through what we perceive. Yeah, it's really powerful. So what does that mean? That means that when we start having a relationship with mind and body, we can go, okay, fellas, listen up, you bacteria and you white blood cells, and I want you to listen to me, and then we start changing that internal dialogue of what sometimes none of us have even questioned before. So we might talk about that internal dialogue, that story that we tell ourselves, that affects our immunity. Now that is the shizzle as far as I'm concerned, right? Because what it means is, okay, so now we know through science that what we think and how we perceive the world and our stories that we tell ourselves affect our biology, therefore affecting our immunity. We know that now. So how cool is that to then go, well, then what the hell can we do about it? And this is where the relationship, the somatic relationship with the body, the mind-body connection, the mindfulness, the meditation, yes? This is where it all comes into play and meets epigenetics. It's really exciting stuff.
Simply saying, it's just what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're telling ourselves impacts our health.
It does. It has an expression on our health. Yes.
Yeah. Because I was going to say a question that I was sort of thinking about as you were talking was, what gets in the way of a healthy immune system? So thoughts and feelings and just beliefs. Do you want to talk into that a bit more, Coryn?
Yeah. So that's a good question. What gets in the way of a healthy immune system? Because the interesting thing is most of us on an intellectual level know that if we party too much, if we don't sleep, if we smoke too many cigarettes, take too many drugs, eat refined food, most of us know that we're probably going to feel pretty crappy and that's going to affect our immune system. But this whole perception thing is kind of a step lower because, over the years, I have had clients come and see me that have been on what we call, clean diets, and so they've come to see me and they're on clean diets, but they're really anxious about it. So it turns into an addiction, and that's a whole nother story. But what I'm getting at here is their story, their beliefs, their perception is producing those inflammation markers that the body goes, holy crap, there's a tiger chasing that person. Meanwhile, they're just sitting there going, I should have made more broccoli. You know what I mean? And so, but their body's going, oh shit, I'm in trouble because I'm producing cortisol and noradrenaline. That's the fight and flight and freeze. That's your perception. And so what does that do? That creates a whole sympathy. Sympathy. I can't say that word.
A symphony.
Of a cascade of all these hormones that get released in your body. Okay, so what affects the immune system? Those hormones being out of balance. So let's take a scenario of when we're sitting down at dinner time. Let's take a scenario that maybe your people can relate to, when they've just made, a really nice healthy meal, and one of the parents has been in the kitchen, the other one might still be at work. The kids are screaming at the mum or the dad, and you're just starting to kind of buzz out. You're short circuiting, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, keep your shit together. Just serving up dinner, and that kind of builds and that builds and that builds. People then release that or don't release it. Yes. And so either way, it can be that freeze thing. So it's that, or some parents might explode. We will all trigger off in different ways when we're in that fight, flight, and freeze. Now, the interesting thing here is the body doesn't go, boom, she's getting really annoyed because her kids have asked her 3,000 times not to put broccoli. Gates are closed. Gates are closed, mum. Get out with damn broccoli. The body doesn't know the difference between that message if you stress about the gates being closed. This is the really key here. If you don't give a shit that your kids say the gates are closed, you go, well, boom, I can get underneath those gates, and there you go. Or you say, okay, fine, don't have the broccoli. But if that is a stress for you, your body then goes, okay, they're in trouble. They need to get away from the saber-toothed tiger. So a huge amount of adrenaline gets poured into your body, and that goes into your limbs. So it goes into your arms and legs, and you run. But except you're not running when you're dishing up the meal. You're just short-circuiting. If it triggers you, that's the point here. If it triggers you, what the external behavior is. So heaps of noradrenaline, heaps of adrenaline, cortisol, histamine. Now, those are all your stress hormones. They have a purpose. Biologically, they're designed to keep us safe and to not be killed by the saber-toothed tiger, But what happens is that just becomes a loop in this modern day society where there's all these external stresses, let alone our stories. Why is that relevant for you guys? Is because it's not about teaching your kids to say gates are closed, isn't it? It's about going, okay, as an adult, how am I going to deal with that next time, where it's just not going to create a loop and a fight and flight response, fight, flight, and freeze response, that I know is going to impact my immunity.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. The charge that comes along with the trigger, right? And then
That's it.
And then you're straight into that loop, and it's and it's impacting, right? So we're talking about the impacts to the immune system, and obviously with the way that things have been out there in sort of lockdown land, there has been a lot of stress and uncertainty, unease, restlessness. Everyone's sort of piled in on each other, and a lot of, I mean, what else have you been seeing out there? Hearing from your clients and seeing in your clinic, even now that people are starting to come out of lockdown, what are the impacts that you're seeing?
Stories of people saying, I just felt like I was the worst mum in the world in lockdown. Stories of dad saying, wow, how wonderful to spend more time with my kids. Stories of, holy shit, I feel so guilty because I should have done so much more schoolwork with my kids. Lots of different stories, but the one that I've heard a bit is triggering off with the amount of time, the uncertainty and the overwhelm of not quite knowing what was going on. And I know that was for me too, interestingly enough. I teach this stuff, but in the first week, I lost myself a little bit, to tell you the truth. And what pulled me back, and I don't know what I was telling you, I've told a few friends of this, but, it's pretty heartwarming because, as I said, I teach this stuff, right? And the first week of lockdown, all my kids were sick. 3 kids were sick. I'm a solo mum, and I kept them all at my place for 14 days, right? And they're all 4 years apart. And so, in that first week of level 4, it would be fair to say that I was really stressed. And I lost my shit at the kids. And we went for a walk in the bush, and my 8-year-old turned me around, and he said, Mum, well, you know what you say, I think it, and the way he spoke to me was so tender. I think it's time for a reset, Mum. And he was talking to me. So he put his hands on my shoulders and he told me to breathe, you know, and I needed that. I'd gone so far into my story of whatever the hell it was that my 8-year-old son just needed to put his hands on my shoulders, tell me to breathe, and then all the tears came, and I just cried and I cried and I cried, you know, and then we went home and had a 4-person party dancing. And it was a real wake-up call for me because, you know, I see a lot of clients in this zone, and it's so easy when you're out of the zone to go, oh, you just need to breathe, you know.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's a discipline, man. It is a discipline. And, you know, for me, I remember when I first got pregnant with my first child, and my dad said to me, you know, I always saw you as just ending up as a Buddhist monk in a cave. And part of me goes, fuck, yes, I would love that. But this is my spiritual journey to be mindful with my children, right? And that's a discipline. And this is where it ties in with the mind body, with our perception, yes, of the external triggers of, you know, of children. I'm speaking here specifically. It can be partners, it can be work colleagues, and how that affects your body. And so what I do and what I tell my clients is, in the moment, you're not going to stop and breathe when you're not used to it, because it's a discipline and you go straight into your primal brain. Yeah, straight there, boom, you're there. So what you need to do is you need to make a commitment to yourself and go, okay, so what do I want? I'd quite like to handle dinner times better. I'd quite like to be a different way with blah, 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 or whatever it is. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to commit to meditating 5 minutes in the morning. You know, I'm going to commit to doing some deep breathing. Yeah. I'm going to commit to doing some, you know, some dancing. I'm going to commit to having a good belly laugh with my children, because that produces the opposite to the fight, flight, and fight. Yes. So this produces the serotonin, the oxytocin, and this is where we talk about getting into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. Yeah. So it's exactly that.
Sort of starting to get into the, you know, into the tips, right? You know, what we can actually do.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about the 5 minutes, because I think, you know, I say this to the parents I work with as well. It's like, you know, anyone can do anything for 5 minutes. You know, start at that place. Just it's doable, right? It's doable to start for somebody who's never ever, you know, brought their attention to their breath or any kind of meditation or
And lots of people don't know how to breathe. So, you know, with my business, Nourish Me, and the things that we do with my sister Trio, maybe we could put a link on here. We teach people how to breathe. You know, we actually teach people how to breathe. I teach people on the table how to breathe when they come for me for a massage, because people breathe from here. When you breathe from the belly, that's when you connect into the parasympathetic nervous system. It's amazing. We're like a walking chemist. We just need to know how to access it. And it's like, you know, if you go and train for a marathon, Jacqueline, you're not going to wake up the day before the marathon and go out and run it, are you? Most of us wouldn't, right? So you need to train for it.
Totally.
You know, what's that?
It's just sitting with the thought of running a marathon tomorrow.
So mindful practice is the same. So when you're in your trigger, you're not going to sit there and go, Coryn told me to breathe and I'm going to breathe. No, man, you need to practice it pre-trigger practice.
Pre-trigger practice.
Pre-trigger practice.
Right? So practicing breathing when you're calm, practicing moving your body when you're calm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a discipline, it's a practice, and it's all about you making the commitment and what your intention is. And only you can do that. The trick is, what I realized is, as a practitioner for a long time, I tried to heal people. It's like, fuck that, excuse my language. It's like, you guys do it yourself. You know, you make the commitment to yourself. Yeah. And then I'll be there, all balloons and bells and whistles to support you. I'll be your cheerleaders along the way. Right. But you get in the driver's seat, you run the marathon, you know, because that's where you reap the rewards, and that's where you're in your control of your body and your mind-body connection and what have you. So what we're talking about here is our perception with our immunity. Yeah. And what I can also touch on with immunity is our gut health. Cool. And so it would be rude if I didn't mention gut health.
we don't want that. So mention away.
Yeah, so gut health is where our immunity, a lot of our immunity is produced. Fight and flight, which we've talked about, when that gets activated, all the blood rushes away from the gut, yes, and goes out to the extremities. And so the poor gut's left going, well, damn, how the hell am I going to break this food? How am I going to nom this yummy food down? How am I going to get all the nutrients and the vitamins and the minerals out of this? I'm not. I'm going to go on strike and just send it right on through. And so the connection between our stress and the way that we literally absorb our nutrients, our macronutrients from our food is incredibly important. Yeah. So if we're stressed, our digestive enzymes go on strike. They don't like it when you're stressed. Therefore, we don't break down the food from the very beginning, from our mouth, the salivary amylase, and then into our gut, and then into our small intestines. And when we get stressed, something funky happens to our bacteria as well. So the microbiome, the good and the bad bacteria, and this is where the heart of our immunity really kind of takes hold. So if we're stressed and we wake up and we're not sleeping, what do? We go for a coffee, we go for adrenal stimulants, we go for sugar, because we're self-medicating. Unfortunately, the gut goes, here she goes again, fellas, and so the gut's like, woohoo, all the bad bacteria are like, all those cousins that you never invite to parties because they just overstay. And so they're having a ball. Meantime, the good bacteria are not. Yes. So this has a direct influence on our immune system. So when we talk about viruses, when we talk about a bacteria, especially a virus needs a host. It needs a host. It needs a docking station. The virus is actually not live. It's like the little thing you put into the computer that holds all the information. That's what a virus is like. It holds lots of information, but it needs a host. Yes. So here's your virus. We're susceptible or we're not, but viruses are there all the time, and the host is your cell that goes, hello, come on in, or the cell goes, beep, I got my hair. And the virus is like, oh, okay, got no docking station. Yeah.
I was often thinking of, if you actually got your immune system to a point where it was so solid, a virus comes up and it's just like, woof, and the virus is like, and runs away. That's kind of the way that I was talking about it with my kids. It was like, we want to boost our immune systems. And one thing that I wanted to bring in here, and I saw it a little while ago. I was absorbing some content from Joe Dispenza, and he was talking about gratitude, and I thought it was incredibly just so vital for the moment. And what he was saying was that if you begin to bring gratitude practices into your life, and it's as simple as 10 minutes a day, 3 times a day for 3 days, will actually boost your immune system by 50%. Like, okay, that, I want some of that. So what are your thoughts around that, around gratitude, around bringing these, because obviously with shifting perception, we're starting to shift our focus and our thoughts. Gratitude is the business from what I'm hearing.
So what Joe's talking about there is he's talking about the communication between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve, and basically gratitude just basically it's like stop that loop, stop that fight and flight, and it basically switches you into rest and digest, which is another way of how we talked about. If you switch over to the parasympathetic nervous system, you're going to increase your immunity. So gratitude is a great tool to use, and it can be a really quick tool. So the other day, my 12-year-old came home, had a really bad day, and he was feeling so down. He's broken his toe. He's just feeling so bummed. And he's the type of kid that's a bit melancholy anyway, And so there's a difference between saying, don't worry, son, chin up, you'll be all right. Because for me, I haven't quite validated where he's at. But as a mom, I don't want to dive into his story because then we can both get down the rabbit hole. So what I say to him is, I hear you. You've got a really sore toe and you've had a shit day. We think of just a couple of things that you feel grateful for. And I notice that he responds really well to that. So I think gratitude works really well as long as you're honest with yourself. So if you say, I'm grateful for that, whatever, and you haven't got it, like, be really realistic. If you're having a shit day, you might just simply be grateful that you got out of bed today. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's the one thing I would say about gratitude is just be really real. Be really real with it so that you don't use it as everything's so great and it's just so light and fluffy and it's just wonderful. Life is just wonderful. Yeah, my dog's like,
and I think also another thing that I practice with my kids is
my dog, sorry.
That's all right. Be specific about what you're being grateful for. Don't say, I'm grateful for the fact that we've got food. It's like, wow, Mum, I'm really grateful for the fact that you cooked the meal, or your kids, wow, I'm really grateful that you took that you came and gave me a hand with peeling the carrots tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's the one. Nice.
Yeah.
Because
otherwise, it can get quite vague and it can get quite it can sort of plateau, right? It can lose its kind of punch.
Exactly. Totally agree with you there. Yeah. So get specific and be real with it. So I really love what Joe has to say on his, epigenetics, quantum physics, perception, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, so we talked a lot about perception, and snippet to kind of take home for people is start simple, 5 minutes.
Yeah,
if that's not realistic, 2 minutes in the shower. You have to clean your teeth anyway. Do some deep breathing or some gratitude while you're cleaning your teeth. Make it really realistic. And then start, as far as immunity goes, simply start, add. Always tell my clients to add in. Humans don't like restriction. Dopamine hates restriction. So dopamine's our feel-good hormone, and it loves variety because we're biologically wired to survive and we need variety. So if we restrict ourselves, even with good food, dopamine's like, it's really pissed off, okay? So variety, spice it up. Immunity can sort of, 7 ways to boost your immunity. It can get a bit dry. Spice it up. Like bring some juice into the way you cook, into the foods you eat. Do not restrict yourself. Add in. Add in hydration. Water in the morning with a pinch of salt or some lemon juice if your adrenals are a bit, under the weather. And add in greens. Alkaline the body. Yes, alkaline. And then you've got your prebiotics, which is your garlic and some of your other vegetables, to create a good environment for your bacteria. Fiber. Refined food simply creates more dysbiosis in your gut. What does that mean? Affects your immune system. So this is where soups and broths and minerals, seaweeds, really foods rich in minerals are going to really help with your immunity. Our body makes vitamins, but it doesn't make minerals, right? And so that's where, especially in the wintertime, we can get a bit low in some of our minerals. So selenium, zinc, eat foods that are high in minerals, seaweeds are a great one. Mushrooms, good quality mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, spend some time going, what do I want to feel like? Okay, this is what I want to feel like. What do I need? I need to restock my cupboard. I need to get some spices. I need to get some chili, cayenne that's really high in vitamin C. I need to get some ginger, sort of stock your cupboards with all those warming, yummy, delicious food that nourish your soul. And don't feel like you have to kind of rely on that external, okay, this is what you need. It's like, what does it take to make me feel good? Now, this is the trick. So many of us are disconnected that we do not know what it takes for us to feel good.
So if you're going to give, just while we're wrapping up, if you were going to give people that are listening an idea to help them find what it is that they do need, and how would they start?
Yeah, that's a big one, eh? That we could do a whole nother series on that. And that's what we do at Sister Trio. We talk about this all the time. It's such my passion. So you start a journal. Get yourself a journal. Yeah. Some or that one. Maybe this one. Get yourself a journal. Start asking questions. Yeah. Create a little temple where you have a little thing of flowers and a candle, and you light it, and you spend 1.5 minutes if you're a busy parent going, oh, that's what I'd like to feel like. You write it down, yeah, and then start the mind body's a somatic experience, and that's going to take a little bit longer. So, if you a lot of people haven't heard of somatic. What is somatic? It's the movement and the expression of emotion and energy in the body with the mind connection. Yeah, mind-body, connection. Yeah. And you've done a lot of somatic practice yourself, Jacqueline. So I'm sure you talk into this a lot with your people. And I'm not going to go into it too much here. But if you are interested in it, look into it. Somatic practice, the mind-body, the movement of energy. Yeah, which basically is the dissipation of our stories. Yeah, because that's all energy, and that's not just being airy fairy. That's kind of what it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ways that I sort of describe it is just get out of here and get into here.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
Noticing what I'm experiencing in the body.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, back, a good number of years ago, I used to be like a head walking on legs,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Not sort of understand what I was experiencing through the body, because I just didn't have the tools, didn't have the awareness, didn't have the information about the mind-body link, which you're talking about. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and that's where it starts, isn't it? So you need the information, you need to intellectually kind of go, oh, that's an interesting concept, and then you need to embody it. Yes. And only you can decide to do that. And this is where only you run your own marathon, right? Some people run it backwards, some people run it forward, some people run it sideways, some people run it fast, some people run it slow, right? But it's your marathon.
Yep. And the last thing I just wanted to ask you before we do wrap this up was sleep.
Yes.
Sleep.
So sleep is massive. So it has a major effect on your immune system, and again, I could talk into that for a whole hour. But what I will say about sleep is a sleep hygiene can be a good place to start if you're not sleeping well. So a sleep hygiene, what I talk about with a sleep hygiene with my clients, okay, what's happening at night? When are you going to bed? Are you going to bed too late? Because if you're going to bed around 11 and 12, you're not getting that real deep drop of melatonin that we need for that very deep rested sleep.
There's hours that are the most conducive, right?
What's that? Sorry?
Yeah, there's a certain time between, isn't there?
Yeah. So sort of 9, 10, 11. But, later than that, you don't get those really deep, that deep sleep. So that's why people go, well, why, if I go to bed at 11, 12, then I'm not waking until 9, 10. But science shows us that that's not quite, doesn't matter. You still might be getting those 8 hours, but you're not getting that, that kind of, that magic time where it drops you in a little bit deeper, which is kind of interesting. So there's when you're going to bed. Is the room dark enough? If it's not, get yourself a mask. Sometimes that can make all the difference. Look at your triggers. Are you going to bed not finishing off what you need to? That's where you get your journal out. So if you're going to bed and you're so busy, get your journal out and just go, right, I need to do this, this, and this, and this. Yeah, and then park it. Ask yourself permission to park it. Quite often, if you name it and you say, can I park this until the morning? Yes, you say, yes, you can. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. So, and then, have I eaten too late? Am I eating too much sugar at night, which is going to influence my sleep cycle? And then you can go deeper in, am I deficient in, magnesium? Is my liver too busy detoxing? All that kind of stuff. But try those things. And also, just like, when you're a baby and when you're a parent and you give your baby sleep cues, it's the same thing. So if you're having problems sleeping, you can get rid of that blue light. So the blue light on computers, dim the lights. This is where the oxytocin comes in. Light some candles, put some soft music on, get all juicy, juice yourself up before you hop into bed. Don't hop into bed with bright lights and jump on your TV, like your screen, like a lot of us do. But if you've got sleep problems, just try for about a week to do it the opposite, and you'll probably find that you'll start sleeping really well. Yeah. So those are a few things that can sometimes help if your sleep isn't too bad, and if it is, then that's come and see me for a consult, and then you can talk about specifically what's going on for people.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. I use a parenting tool that is exactly that. Dance the opposite. Do the opposite of what you're doing, and see what happens.
Nice.
I'd add with the mask, is definitely a parenting tool, is earplugs.
Yes. Yeah.
I've never used earplugs. Just one earplug in when I'm kind of, walking around the house, just to take the edge off. So beautiful, beautiful tips. And we will definitely put a link down to what you're doing with both Nourish Me and Sister Trio for anyone that's interested.
Awesome.
And thank you, Coryn. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing with us, a bit about what goes on for us in our immune systems, the impacts that it has when we're not looking after them, stress and the thoughts, perception, and also what we can actually start to do about it that can, be done in manageable ways of, 5 minutes of starting to get these little practices in, pre-trigger, when we're in our ease. And beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will wrap it up there. I think we've done it well.
Cool.
And we'll put some links underneath. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any other questions just pop them underneath, and Coryn can jump on and answer them at another time if you're catching the replay. So I hope everybody's well out there in this long weekend and has a beautiful next couple of days.
Yay.
All righty.
Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to see you.
You're welcome. All righty.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.